Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. It is Patrick Daugherty and Denny Carter back from the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio. We have a lot of news to talk about today. Two of the dominoes we've been waiting for to fall all summer, Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook, finally have new teams. Dalvin Cook with the Jets, where we expected him to end up all along. Ezekiel Elliott with the Patriots, where he had been trending for the past several weeks. We will get the fallout from that, including what it means for the left behind former RB1s in fantasy, that is. Rhamondre Stevenson and Breece Hall, are they still RB1s? Yep. Is it over for both? Are they both retiring, Rhamondre Stevenson and Breece Hall? And got some other news. We're checking on Jonathan Taylor. He's apparently going to come back to the Colts this week. J.K. Dobbins is ramping up his practice. T.J. Hockenson not practicing. Mike Gesicki's injured. Some of the weekend warriors from the first preseason slate. Denny, first, most people probably consume this in audio form, so they can't see what I can see. But what I see is a new hairstyle. And the people on YouTube will be seeing this, and you might just say, I just thought it was time for a change. I've had the other one for a long time. I know the real reason you're changing your hair.
Yeah, what is it? Because I don't know.
Seeing you at the expo, you're a celeb, and you are haunted and frightened by the experience, and you are now trying to change your hairdo to become less recognizable. But I don't think it's going to work. You need to keep the signature hairdo in public and then do this new hairdo in private so people can't recognize you. I just don't think this gambit's going to work.
I'm going to try. Yeah, it's the first time I've changed my hairstyle since the second Clinton administration. So I thought it was time. Every 25 years, I try to switch it up. That's my rule of thumb with hair. Yeah, I mean, we're trying it. We're experimenting. I've also been wearing the glasses with the big nose attached to it, so that people won't recognize me. No, I mean the expo was a lot of fun. It was a ton of fun as always, and I just want to say I appreciate all the drinks that were bought for me on Friday and Saturday. I did not expect any of that, and it was a lot, and I'm still recovering. But I do appreciate the offers. They're very nice.
Yeah, that's why you feel like you were hit by a bus. Why you were also literally hit by a bus Saturday night because you were so intoxicated from the free drinks.
Come on,
that were served to you.
And what that means is I had over 2.5.
I know that's the dark secret. Yeah,
yeah. I had three. Is what happened.
No, not exactly. I had 4 drinks Saturday night, and you would think that wouldn't lead to a 24-hour headache, but you would be wrong. And it was telling me not to drink again Sunday night, where I again had 4 more drinks though. And
did you? This is what people on Twitter always ask me. Did you consider just drinking water instead?
I know. Believe it or not, do you think the water thing works? Because I always adhere to the water thing.
Me too.
And I feel like it gets very mixed results. I'm starting to wonder if we just need to become like the World War II generation, like the boomers, and like water.
Well, even the baby boomers didn't have a sip of water while drinking. I told my dad, I said Friday night went a little overboard, and he said, what do you mean? I told him, I said, well, but I had like 10 glasses of water, and he was like, wait, why? He didn't even understand. He didn't even know. I said, wait, you've never done that? He said, no. Why would you worry about water? So
your dad, of course, has never been hungover either in 65 years or whatever it is.
It's a foreign concept to these people, and we're racked with anxiety about the prospect of a hangover. So we're just gulping. Oh, I had 1 beer. I need to drink 4 glasses of water now. That's the way the math works. That's the analytics. And honestly, it's embarrassing to talk about.
Now, there's going to be an article in the New York Times in the next 18 months that actually, while having no effect whatsoever on the alcohol levels in your system, water actually makes hangovers 10 times worse.
Right.
And we've been doing it all
I can't wait for that to come out so I can stop doing this ridiculous exercise.
Yeah.
Drinking
Denny is
water.
A real deal celeb, by the way. You're like John Paul, Ringo, Taylor.
Yeah.
I know modern celebs, Taylor Swift. Yeah, this guy knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. I've heard of her. And now I have Ringo's haircut. So, that's actually it works out.
So yeah, really, really fun time at the Fantasy Football Expo. Check it out next year. Real quick, before we dive into the big news, a reminder about our draft guide. With the NFL season quickly approaching, now is the perfect time to get your Rotoworld Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Get ready for your draft and stay one step ahead of your league during the preseason with updated player rankings, profiles, projections, mock drafts, and much more. Go to NBCSports.com/draft guide and use promo code DRAFT2023 to save 20% off at checkout. That is NBCSports.com/draft guide. promo code DRAFT 2023 to save 20% off at checkout. Denny, the long national nightmares. There's a lot of those ending recently, but of course, the biggest are Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott finally having new teams. As we mentioned, at long last, the New York Jets have signed Dalvin Cook. Breece Hall was going as an RB1 on Underdog. I don't really know what he was going in more of like the home leagues, but it was high. And I thought it was aspirational all along. I write in the draft guide that I just promoted that I thought Breece Hall was a very overvalued summer pick just because this seemed like he was being drafted his absolute ceiling. And I think that was maybe before it was obvious they were going to sign veteran competition.
Yeah.
So I was out in front on truthing Breece Hall. But as we know now, with Dalvin Cook in there, he could fall like way too far the opposite direction. People could totally panic.
Sure.
He could fall outside the top 24, maybe even the top 30. First of all, what does this mean for Breece Hall? Then we'll get to Dalvin Cook. Because a guy that people were relying on as an RB1 is not going to be that right now.
Exactly. Yeah. So actually, to answer your question from a second ago, in more casual leagues, he was going as RB15. So a little bit later than we would see in like sicko best ball drafts. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he were going later than that in many sort of office or home leagues. I think that he will drop in the coming weeks. I think that Dalvin Cook will probably get too high, honestly, in ADP, because one of the only edges we have to exploit in fantasy football anymore. You mentioned this at the expo, how everybody has become so savvy with all the information available that you just don't see like egregious picks much anymore. Like we did in the old days of like 2016 or so. You don't really see that. So, but one of the biggest edges that remain are early season volume. Okay. So yes, Breece Hall will almost definitely not have early season volume on his side. He could even be inactive for a game or two or three. Right. And so Dalvin Cook will have a valuable role. You'll probably feel pretty good if you drafted him as your RB2 or 3 or whatever. But later in the season, I think is what we're looking at. Right. So the idea of drafting Breece Hall in the 4th round or wherever he may go in a 12-team league is that you'll have him in November and December when the Jets are potentially making a playoff run and not really wanting to lean on Aaron Rodgers in like a hugely pass-heavy attack, right? I think they want to be balanced. They probably even want to be run-heavy if possible. So if you can look forward, if you can, I don't know, make up for Breece Hall's lack of early season volume, you can still pick him and sort of be patient.
This is a very hard thing to do in fantasy football because when the regular season's 14 weeks, if say like, he'll be back in November, you're writing off, over half the fantasy football. He will be back before November, but you meant back in like a production sense in early November. Yeah. So he's not going to be on the PUP list. So the Jets expect him back in the first 4 games. We're just not entirely sure when yet. The thing I worry about with Breece Hall is it's people are already kind of like promoting that as like the best case scenario. Like, yeah, he's not gonna have the volume early in the season, but just wait to November and December. And if your best case scenario is something, it is highly plausible, but also highly speculative. I mean, what if Dalvin Cook is just an amazing fit in this offense? He looked washed last year. The advanced metrics said he was bad. He was still the RB13 by average PPR points. This is one of those veteran-laden, like going all in teams. Like they're gonna be. If Dalvin Cook like is looking steady in the first 6 or 7 weeks, I have a hard time believing they're just gonna now we're feeding Breece.
Right.
And it just does sort of seem like that real second half surge, which Patrick Crane has talked about a lot, that he wasn't really as concerned about Breece because it's more about the second half of the season. I think it is a big concern for Breece that is kind of like the best case scenario.
Yeah, I do get that. And you know what? It's worth noting this is an Aaron Rodgers signing.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, he played against Dalvin Cook, so that's all that matters. And he wanted him on his team. And so the Jets did what they always do, is they do what Aaron Rodgers wants to do. And so, that matters. Like if Aaron Rodgers wants Dalvin Cook on the field, Dalvin Cook's going to be on the field. If Aaron Rodgers wants Randall Cobb on the field, Randall Cobb will be on the field. He's calling all of the shots here. So we have to take that into account. But yeah, I mean, so the path the path to fantasy success for Breece Hall got more narrow with this Cook sign.
I just looked at Dalvin Cook's career game logs on Pro Football Reference, seeing like, I bet he just nuked the Packers, and Aaron Rodgers, like, we got it. He didn't really nuke the Packers. He had 250-yard rushing performances, but then they like really contained him a lot. I'm surprised Aaron Rodgers is so into this.
Well, he scored. I think our producer Adam said that he scored 9 touchdowns in 9 games against the Packers.
Yeah, that he scored a lot of tutters. There are a lot of tutters in there, and he had a few really memorable ones. 2020 he had 163 yards. 2019 he had 154 yards. But I was expecting every game to be like 85 yards, 110 yards, 112 yards. Right. It wasn't quite that. He missed 3 games against the Packers with injury. But I mean, who finishes the season with more PPR fantasy points, Dalvin Cook or Breece Hall?
I mean, I have to say Hall. Another thing
really, I mean, I just feel like I have to say Cook, and I know this is gonna become like a boomer versus like analytics take, but to me, it's just like reality. Like, he's signed to be. It makes so much sense that Breece Hall would take over the backfield, but it is just like a lot more speculative than people want to admit. Like, where Dalvin Cook is like, 1 in the hand is better than, what is it? 1 in the hand is better than 2 in the bush. He's the 1 in the hand right now.
I think that's correct. And correct? We have to look up that phrase real quick. Yeah, are there any 60-year-olds watching?
Yeah, please reach out to us, please. We know you don't know how to use the internet, but please reach out.
Anyway, look, I also think that it matters. Well, this is Aaron Rodgers' team. He's basically the GM. It also matters that Dalvin Cook was signed after kind of being rejected by multiple teams.
Only for money purposes, though. They all probably think he's still like got that dog in him.
Well, he's 28, chronic shoulder issues. Last month, Diana Rossini from ESPN reported that one of the hangups between the Jets and Dalvin Cook, which those negotiations lasted for 8 years, really. It
was like longer than like a peace process.
Yeah, and one of the big hangups was Dalvin Cook's likely role in the New York offense. I think that the implication was that he thought he would be signing as the unquestioned lead back, and they were like, "No, that's not. You're going to have to split."
But
the back
is he? I mean, it's worth like almost up to $9 million. I wonder what the base. But the base level is probably like at least like $5 million.
It's 6. It's around 6.
I mean, that's starter money. I mean, that is starter money. Just to be perfectly frank.
Yeah, I don't like.
It is also like imperial phase money. Like, we're all in money. Like, we can afford to pay a backup running back $6 million. But it's just such a hard one because we love Breece Hall. He was ridiculously explosive and efficient. But we just saw this movie with J.K. Dobbins, and unlike the Ravens, didn't sign competition, and the Jets actually. I will say
I think that Adrian Peterson ruined us forever on the ACL injury.
He did.
As fantasy managers, we're ruined. We can never ever look at it the same way. Like, 6 to 9 months recovery time for these guys is not. It's not a lot. Many would say it's not enough. I read a paper. Doctors in Europe think that the NFL is crazy for putting these guys back on the field 6 to 9 months after the ACL tear. That's a 2-year injury for like soccer players in Europe. Okay, and yet this is what we see every year. And every year, well, if he's on the field, I want him. And so I'm just very hesitant to go. I am hesitant to go all in on those guys. I think
Dalvin's going to outpoint him. Unfortunately, I just do.
I do. I have to say that Breece Hall's late season prospects, I think, could be worth the pick if you can then go get guys.
It's just so speculative. Like, why would I be drafting someone like the 4th or 5th round, like November? Like, it's going to be.
If you can get running backs who can suffice, for a while, a Pacheco, your guy. I'm trying to think of other James Cook, like guys in the middle to late rounds who you could Ryan plug in, play a little bit, please Breece, get back.
I just think that works. That works a lot better in fantasy baseball where the season is 69 months long. Like, football, after the end of September, like, the season's a quarter done. Like, and like, you might feel like you have all season to fix your team, but you really don't. No, and you're also in a situation where, like, if you have Breece Hall and you're counting on big point returns, like later in the year, then you're by definition you're using fab like probably overly aggressively on like kind of like the mediocre backs that come on the wire in September. It just, I feel like it makes so much sense because it is very plausible, but there's just a lot of much more dot connecting than I think people are willing to admit is required to say like Breece still greater than Dot. And I want it to be true. I swear I'm not a boomer on this, but
no, I get it. I mean, I desperately want it to not be true. For Dalvin not to be a thing.
It just seems like wait till 2024 with Breece Hall to me. But
yeah. I mean, that's how I've been approaching it. But
that's how I've been approaching it all summer. And continue.
If he's going to be pushed down now that Dalvin Cook has signed, I'm sorry, did I disappear here for a second?
You're still here. You wish you had.
No, I mean, if he's going to be pushed down, then I'm interested. I'll say.
Yeah, you wish you were like panicking, and then you acted like your internet was freezing. No,
I've lost the debate once again.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I barely even gave an answer. You at least gave an answer. I'm just like, I don't know, Jim. But I think my answer is that I unfortunately think Dalvin will outproduce Breece Hall, and that his ADP will fall a lot, but it probably won't fall enough for me. And it's just an always very seductive and always very incorrect approach in fantasy sports, I think, to bet on injured player. It makes a lot. We hear the best arguments, including from Patrick Crane in the best ball space, where there you really can do it because you don't have to worry about like making the start sit decisions and the running backs.
That's right.
And like where the end of the season is so important in best ball.
Right.
But in redraft, in order for someone to contribute in the playoffs, you have to make the playoffs, and you're making it very difficult to make the playoffs if you're using a premium draft pick on someone who's like barely going to contribute.
Well, but I mean, I'm talking about like I could see Breece Hall being available in the 5th round in 12-team leagues. I'm okay.
That's still a premium pick, but I'm also taking it too far. I mean, Breece Hall will probably off the jump, I guess, be getting 10 to 12 touches. So it's just a situation where I don't have a very good answer. Really,
but maybe not. I mean, I really, if it's Sunday morning on week 1, I would not be shocked if he's on the inactive list.
No, it seems like he's going to miss a game or two, maybe. But this is one of those times in fantasy football where like my fantasy conservatism could come back to bite me because I'm only seeing the negative case with Breece Hall. Where the positive case is very real.
Listen, in regard to your fantasy conservatism, you got to get woke.
I know, so I do need to get woke.
And please just draft Breece Hall once.
Need to get woke. Really, really, really need. I will never draft Breece Hall at least once. I will never do it. This next one is, I mean, I feel like even more confusing because we said at long last the Jets signed Dalvin Cook. At long last, the Patriots have signed Ezekiel Elliott as the early down complement to Rhamondre Stevenson that they've been telegraphing for months that they just felt like they had to have. Rhamondre has been going as a top 10 RB1. Unlike Breece Hall, there's like no chance Rhamondre falls out of the top 24 running back. Probably no chance he falls even out of the top 18.
Right.
But because this isn't uncharted territory for Rhamondre Stevenson. He had an early down compliment in Damian Harris, but he was hurt a lot. Rhamondre kind of dispatched Damian Harris last year. Zeke, we've seen him. He's even more on his Dalvin Cook. I feel like could have like a rejuvenation season in him maybe. Zeke, there's no rejuvenation season coming. Like it's been dead legs for years, which I hate to say about Zeke, who has been such a good player, such a tough player. I think to his detriment, he played through too many injuries and kind of cut his prime short. What does this do to Rhamondre Stevenson? If anything, are you still comfortable with Rhamondre as a top 12 running back?
I honestly, I don't know. No, not as a top 12, but you're not going to have to draft him as a top 12, I don't think. After this news. So
I don't know. Breece is going to free fall. I think you hear a lot of people say what I just did. Like, well, this isn't even anything new for Rhamondre. He already had an early down compliment.
Okay.
And,
okay.
I don't know.
That makes sense.
He will initially fall out of the top 12. That is true. The initial reaction will be panic, and he'll fall out of the top 12.
All right. So the big thing is Rhamondre is not going to score a touchdown this year. That's the initial reaction. And our own Zach Kruger wrote a really good piece on the Rotoworld site right now. I recommend everybody check that out. I'm trying not to butcher what Zach said, but it was like this. Ezekiel Elliott has been really good at the goal line over the past couple seasons, and Rhamondre Stevenson has been really bad at the goal line. Now, I will say, I just want to put this out there. The analytics say that goal line performance is completely fluky and not predictable at all. Okay, so I don't think it matters. The Patriots do. Obviously, Bill Belichick has never seen one number. in his analysis of his team. So he, you know, he wants Ezekiel Elliott to hammer home the touchdowns, and that stinks. But we just interviewed a Patriots beat writer last week.
Do you remember his name, Denny? It's Phil Perry.
It is Phil Perry. I knew it was Phil, but I couldn't remember. Okay,
sorry to embarrass. That was Phil Perry from NBC Sports Boston.
Yes, one of the best beat writers out there for the Patriots. Phil Perry said Bill O'Brien's offense is going to check down to Rhamondre Stevenson time and time again. And that's still gonna happen. Look, Ezekiel Elliott had like 12 catches last year. He's not going to be catching those checkdowns. So from a PPR standpoint, I think Stevenson still is very much live. Yes, okay, like he has that touchdown base upside completely capped right now. But you know, I'm still good with him as like a top 12-ish guy.
I think I'm still good with him like the 10 to 14 range. And what it really means is like the next level isn't coming. Like he is going to be stuck in like the 5 to 6 touchdown range. And he probably is not catching. He caught 69 passes last year. Not very efficient, as we all. I mean, he averaged only 6 yards per catch. I mean, this was in a horribly designed offense. Some of that will probably come up just by virtue of being a more like sensible, better sequenced offense. But it is possible that they've decided maybe he's not even that efficient as a pass catcher, and they would like to get that number down. And they want more of those receptions going to receivers. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, no. I mean, he was third in running back targets last year in a completely dysfunctional offense. Now he's in one that you know prioritizes the screen pass to the running back. I honestly think that it's in his range of outcomes where he leads the league in running back targets. I know that sounds insane because you have McCaffrey.
I don't think that's going to happen.
In Austin Eckler. But this offense is going to take a big jump this year. So you're going to have more plays. You're going to have more designed, passes to the running back, and that's all Stevenson's area in that offense.
And the thing is, it doesn't even need to take a big jump. It just needs to take like a modest like half leap. Like it just needs to be even vaguely better, and they will all see the benefit from it. Rhamondre, whereas Breece Hall, I am very concerned. Rhamondre, it just doesn't really change that much. It doesn't change his status quo. It does change the fact that where some people were maybe hoping they didn't sign anyone and he could go like totally supernova and be a 3-down back. So like, it does change the fact that there's not like another level to his game this year now, but the baseline is still that of an RB1. And
on Fantasy Pros, Stevenson is RB10, so that might be a little rich. I mean, he's going ahead of like Gibbs, Mixon, Aaron Jones. You know, I don't know about that. Yeah, that's gonna be a tough one. Gibbs, I would take him ahead of Mixon. Gibbs, I'm starting to get like summer excitement syndrome. I could tell.
You should probably know. I know. You saw me take him in the Fantasy Football Happy Hour mock draft that we are currently conducting. But he's gonna fit. I would take him over Gibbs. No, I don't know. Man, why did I take Gibbs over Stevenson? I don't know about that.
Oh, that's funny. I mean, I was like, ooh, Pat's getting aggressive on Gibbs.
Yeah, I did get aggressive. I was shooting for upside because I got killed on the wide receivers. So instead of taking like meat and potatoes running backs, I took an upside running back.
No, you got to have your meat and potatoes. Come on.
Yeah, you do. Always have.
If you want your pudding.
Do people still eat meat and potatoes? That's another thing. Zoomers will never eat a potato.
No, never even seen a potato.
Starch, potatoes are carbo loading, right? No, potatoes.
Yes, right. Yeah, no. Zoomers have never had one carb.
No, they haven't. Yeah.
They eat only meat.
That's why they are never full. Zoomers will never have a carb. That's why all day they're drinking 77 ounces of water.
That's right. 400 ounces of water and steak nonstop. It's the paleo diet is what I've been told.
You got to have one carb, just one carb. So I guess, I don't know, did we even put a bow? Like, did we even say anything on the 2 running? I think we did. But I think what we also said was that it is complicated. It is very, very, and like, it is. 2 situations where you're not really going to get a silver bullet answer. As much as we want one, it's just like there's no true like silver bullet answer to easy.
I will say, if you're doing your drafts this coming week, right, and you're in your home league, and Stevenson's available in the 3rd, I'm pulling that trigger. I'm drafting him in the 3rd.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Because Rhamondre too, even I, as a quote expert, even I, as someone who reads the news all day, when it first happens, it's hard not to feel like, oh, damn, like this really stinks. Because Rhamondre is like the linchpin of my dynasty team. Then after I had time to like develop my actual take, I realized that this really isn't that big. It's a big deal if you wanted him to go supernova. Not a big deal if you just want him to be Rhamondre Stevenson.
You know what it sounds like you're doing, Pat? It sounds like you're coping.
Yeah, it kind of does. I am coping.
You're crying and coping once again.
I will never cope. I have come from a great lineage of Irish, German, Midwesterners who only bury ever deeper.
Who have never cried nor coped.
They've never cried nor coped. We eat lots and lots of potatoes. We eat. Potatoes are one of the staples of my diet. Carbo load on the potatoes.
Which means that you were born in the 80s. That's all.
It's true. I don't even know which topic to get. Do we want to talk about Jonathan Taylor or Anthony Richardson next, Denny?
Let's go Richardson.
We'll go Anthony Richardson, where the Colts have finally ended Denny's Gardner Minshew delusion. You keep trying to like put the idea out there that Gardner Minshew might start games this season. It's not happening.
You are just a committed Gardner Minshew hater.
It's not, even though I can grow his same mustache. Curious.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's funny. It's curious.
It is very curious.
Yeah.
Are you taking? Where are you at on Anthony? I feel like you've been excited by Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
We know he's starting now, so that'll probably lead to a modest jump in ADP. But there's been people making like the very good point on Twitter, like pointing out like the actual amount of rushing stats he would need, like return his ADP, like it is like insane. He probably need like 9 or 10 rushing touchdowns. He probably need like 800 rushing yards to really get close to like returning on his ADP. Just how comfortable are you taking Anthony Richardson?
All right, look, right now Richardson is going after Geno Smith, after Kirk Cousins, and after Aaron Rodgers. Now, if you want to finish 5th in your fantasy league, you should take those guys. Okay. Nice, safe floor. If you want that floor, you got that safe floor. You got Kirk Cousins, 290 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. That's your floor. If you want to win your league, you take Anthony Richardson and you let it fly. And if it doesn't work, then you scramble and you figure out another plan at quarterback. But if it works, you're feeling great about your team.
It might work for us.
But it has worked.
I know. I'm kidding. I am kidding. It works all the time.
Yeah. Every year we have this hyper athletic dual threat mobile guy, and we're like, I don't know. He might not start. He might. I mean, that's what I was doing. I was hedging my own bets about Richardson, even though I was also excited about him. I was having an inner turmoil about Anthony Richardson. Obviously, the wheels, as the Zoomers say, are up now that he has the starting job. And by the way, this whole thing about, we didn't see much in preseason. He completed 7 of 12. He had 1 bad throw. I grant you that. He had 2 rushes. They're not going to show anything. They're not going to show anything about the way that the Colts are going to use Anthony Richardson as a rusher in the preseason. Nothing. Okay. So in week 1, we're going to see it. And in week 1, it's going to be marvelous. Beautiful.
Denny, I put a take out there at the expo on one of our panels where you were here for this, and it plays into a take you've been having you've been very skeptical about Michael Pittman's fit with Anthony Richardson. And I said, again, like, couching everything, I said I didn't think it was the most likely outcome, but I thought there was like a higher percentage chance than I probably wanted to admit that Alec Pierce might become the Colts' #1 receiver this year. Do you think that's crazy? What do you think of that?
Well, look.
He's a better, but the thinking being is the pure downfield threat. He's a much better fit with what Anthony Richardson is good at right now. And that Michael Pittman, he's not going to be the compiler he was the past few years in Anthony Richardson. And just that with what the Colts need to do in 2023, Alec Pierce might be a better fit.
I don't think that it's like completely out of the range of outcomes that Alec Pierce scores more fantasy points than Pittman. But I will say, that it'll be in a completely different way than Pittman scores points, right?
Not in a PPR friendly way, no.
No, it's going to drive you insane, actually.
It would be like kind of like old MVS, maybe old like Deshaun Jackson. I'm trying to think of a few better comps.
Yeah.
Somewhere in between old school Deshaun Jackson and Marcus Valdes-Scantling.
Look, he's going to have Pierce is going to have a crazy ADOT, crazy yards per target, and not a lot of volume. This team could be among the 2 or 3 most conservative, most run-heavy offenses in the NFL, right? So yeah, I mean, Pierce is often going to have 3 to 5 targets. If he catches a long one, you feel great. You feel great about starting him in your lineup. If he doesn't catch the long one, you feel pretty awful, and you're kicking yourself, and you're saying, why didn't I start the guy who caught 6 passes for 80 yards? You know what I mean? So you have to prepare yourself for that. Pittman will be, I think, more consistent, okay, in the kind of targets he gets. But as far as volume and where Richardson wins as a thrower, that's all Pierce.
Yeah, like the best case scenario for Alec Pierce in 2023 is probably like a poor man's version of like AJ Brown's rookie season, where AJ Brown had like 50 catches for 1,000 yards. Pierce would probably be more something like 60 for 900 or something, because he's just not that explosive. He's not as explosive as AJ Brown is what I meant. And I don't think is he known as like a yak guy? I don't know.
No, he's not.
Maybe all deep threats are, in theory, kind of yak guys, but he's not a tackle breaking yak guy. And you're kind of hoping for the poor man's version of AJ Brown's rookie year, which used to be a very common type NFL season. You go back to like these 60s through 80s game logs, like it was all the time. Like someone have like 55 catches for 1,099 yards and like 11 touchdowns somehow.
Right.
But the pure deep threat doesn't really exist in the game anymore. So yeah, Alec Pierce is someone I do find myself taking fairly frequently near the end of drafts, just on the off chance this happens, because it makes sense to me.
So in redraft, he's going to be very difficult. In best ball, he's great. Like
he's the quintessential hashtag better in best ball.
I actually will not leave a draft without Alec Pierce. And if someone else drafts him, I go to their house and knock on the door and I say, undraft him. I'm taking him.
No one has ever been betterer in best ball than Alec Pierce has.
That's right.
He's missed me in best ball. He's that kind of guy in best ball. So you will not miss us yet. We'll be right back after this. MLB Sunday leadoff heads to Dallas, Texas, where the Seattle Mariners take on last year's World Series champion. Oh, no. 3, 2, 1. MLB Sunday leadoff heads to Texas, where the Seattle Mariners take on last year's World Series champions, the Houston Astros. Watch these two teams not only battle for position in the AL West, but for the postseason as well. Catch the action live this Sunday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Peacock. And don't forget, find all your favorite NBC sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. If you're listening on the podcast, you won't hear the snafu I had during our promo read.
It was
never
horrible.
know what it was. It
was horrible. He forgot what the Astros name was.
No, I saw Texas and just assumed it meant the Rangers, but it was the Astros. But we edited it out so you didn't hear it, but then I talked about it, so you found out about it anyway.
That's what we call a self-own.
Yeah, it was the selfest own I've ever had. Denny, Jonathan Taylor is – what was the Jonathan Taylor news? He's coming back to practice or something finally?
He didn't get a high five from Gardner Minshew. That's
really? Is that for real?
Yeah. Yeah, Minshew decided to high five everybody else but Jonathan Taylor.
That's really, really messed up. That's leadership too. Am I right?
It is.
Yeah, am I right? No, he's returned. He's returned to Colts camp, Jonathan Taylor. He's still on the active PUP list, but he's back. I'm still not really concerned about Jonathan Taylor.
No?
Do you feel better about Jonathan Taylor or J.K. Dobbins? Let's start there.
Well, I mean, considering that you have to blow a hole in your roster with Jonathan Taylor, I'll go with Dobbins. Like, I mean, Taylor's not going to slip to like the 8th round or anything. Like you have to decide on him in the 2nd or 3rd round, right?
He was the 1-1 last year. I remind you, the 1-1.
And just no thanks, honestly, no thanks.
You're no thanksing the 24-year-old 1-1 from a year ago.
Yeah, no. I'm not interested.
In an offense where a Colts beat reporter came on this show and told us they could run more than any team in the league.
Anthony Richardson's going to lead the team in rushing touchdowns.
He is not. That is false. It will be Jonathan Taylor. It will be. This is not going to be an Eagles situation because the Eagles did not have a Jonathan Taylor on that roster. They had Miles Sanders, who every week they would have a 2-hour coaches meeting. Like, how can we not get Miles Sanders the ball? It's totally different with Jonathan Taylor.
You have to admire that kind of commitment.
You do. But Jonathan Taylor will lead this league. Next question, Denny. Jonathan Taylor will lead this league. No, sorry. Continue.
I don't know, man. I feel like the situation is so toxic. I hedge big time on being like, oh, everything will be fine. with Taylor? No, everything won't be fine with Jonathan Taylor. I think there's still a chance he just won't play, or the team will say, no, thanks. We don't want you. We don't want you around.
Or I think it could be that won't happen, but it could be maybe like a suspension by another name where they start him on the PUP list to begin the year.
That's what I'm talking. That sort of eventuality where it doesn't matter. I don't care what happens. He's not going to play because the team's pissed about how he's handled things. And I also want to be clear: Jonathan Taylor obviously should be making more money. Obviously should be paid. But that's not. That's not the situation, though. That's not we have to talk about the actual reality rather than what we want.
I don't think that will happen for the sole reason. I don't think it will start on the PUP list because they don't want to hurt Anthony Richardson. And for Anthony Richardson's development, I think they will want Jonathan Taylor out there absorbing contact, absorbing touches. So there's not so much pressure on Anthony Richardson to begin his career. But it is tough. Whatever the opposite of kumbaya is what this is.
It's really
a bad trip.
It's really ugly.
I mean, J.K. Dobbins, do you feel good about J.K. Dobbins? He's practicing again. It seems like his is the same deal, where it seems more about contract than health. But unlike Jonathan Taylor, it seems like they're still speaking to each other. They're shaking each other's hands.
Yeah,
they're practicing. So you're not very worried about J.K. Dobbins, I take it.
I'm not as worried, no. And also, I mean, Dobbins doesn't have any leverage at all, so that actually works in the favor of a fantasy manager who wants to draft Dobbins, thinking, "Oh, I hope he plays. He'll play." He has no other choice. He's been hurt for 2 years.
Denny, who purports on Twitter to support workers' rights, and is yet celebrating the fact that J.K. Dobbins has no leverage. Curious.
I'm just acknowledging reality.
It's true. He has zero leverage, like about as little leverage as you will ever see in a contract.
There actually is no comparable situation where a player who has been hurt for 2 years, who has 1,500 total yards in the NFL after 3 seasons, is saying, "I want a new contract." No one's giving that to you.
You understand, like we said, we understand why. It's a very sensible thing for him to do.
Sure.
But unfortunately, the reality is, the Ravens do not have to react.
And the Ravens really like him. Harbaugh.
The Ravens are doing what the Colts should have done, which neither team is going to do anything, but the Ravens are doing it with a smile. Whereas the Colts, literally the owner brought him on his bus and lectured him. Not really a good approach for this.
His smelly bus.
Yes. No, the bus that is routinely wrecked with foul smells. We won't get into what causes those, but
I don't know. I think until you get some clarity, I just feel like you're taking a huge chance unless he starts really slipping. Taylor, I'm talking about Taylor. Unless he starts really slipping in drafts, then you can kind of seize that. But I can't take him in the second. No way.
I think I can. The upside is just so immense, and
is it
unlike Breece Hall? If he plays, it's 20 touches when he's playing from the jump.
I don't know if is it immense.
It is immense. I mean, he's
one with a rushing quarterback.
Yeah, because now team defenses are scared of the rushing quarterback. They got eyes on him, opening up running lanes. They got one of those pop-a-shot offenses where you might not live in fear of the passing game, but you do live in fear of the deep ball. And when you're living in fear of the deep ball and the quarterback rushing, I feel like that could create a perfect storm of running lanes for John, as long as it's functional. Not if they're 3rd and 7 every series, which could be the reality of the early season Colts offense. But I do think it could actually be a pretty good setup for Jonathan Taylor.
I will say Anthony Richardson's ability to keep plays alive and to not take sacks, which he excelled at in college, could create a positive fantasy environment for the Colts that we're not forecasting right now. No. And I'm talking about for the whole offense, not just one specific player. Obviously Richardson would benefit from that, but a sustained drives, that sort of thing, right? Where you would get more out of a Taylor, you get more out of a Pittman maybe than I'm guessing.
Matt Ryan would never quote just sustain a drive.
Yeah, exactly.
He would not do it last year.
The opposite of that.
Denny, not a major deal. TJ Hockenson's been missing practice time with an ear infection, which we're not actually concerned about, but I just thought made it a good moment to highlight the fact that TJ Hockenson is going as the unquestioned tight end 3. And just that I find that kind of insane for a guy who's whose ceiling campaign was last year, and it was just because he kept catching 7-yard passes and was horrifically inefficient. It was like the definition of a PPR scam. 60 catches for 519. He averaged under 9 yards per catch, which is like almost impossible unless you're a running back.
Yeah.
Like even for like a tight end, averaging under 9 yards per catch is like almost impossible. 4 years, we never saw this in Detroit. We saw it for one really small sample size in Minnesota. They used a first-round pick on a wide receiver. Are we too excited about T.J. Hockenson as the tight end 3?
I think so. The only times I've taken Hockenson in best ball or in redraft is when he slips, and he's starting to do that because of the lack of practice and because of I think the other guys.
People are refusing to open their minds like me.
The other guys on the board, but I will say that the massively pass heavy nature of this Minnesota offense is going to buoy him. And even you're right. I mean, like it's a Zach Ertz like catch and fall down situation for Hockenson. But hey, that's a scam, and we'll take our scams where we can get them.
We will take our scam. I just think that it's just not going to be. I think the T.J. Hockenson we saw. So I think it may have said 7. It was 10 games for the Vikings last year. It's just not the T.J. Hockenson we're going to see this year. I think that was like a one-time like personnel-based thing where they desperately needed like a viable guy to just move the chains, basically. Yeah. So that was all he did was move the chains. He was not making big plays. He was not scoring touchdowns. They went and addressed that with Jordan Addison in the very first round of the draft. I think people are drafting a version of T.J. Hockenson that so they think, all right, it's not Lions T.J. Hockenson anymore. It's Vikings T.J. Hockenson. I just think that version of Vikings T.J. Hockenson no longer even exists. And this is, I think there's no ceiling whatsoever for him. Is that maybe there's a very high floor, which is fine, but there's absolutely no ceiling with TJ. Someone's going to roll the tape at the end of the year when he has 1,200 yards or whatever.
Yeah, of course. Kyle Pitts is going about 20 picks after Hockenson. I find that pretty egregious. I would, if I had to choose between Pitts at his current ADP versus Hockenson at his, it's Pitts all day. Even a guy like Evan Ingram going with 37 picks after Hockenson. I mean, Ingram could outscore Hockenson this year.
If I had to choose between T.J. Hockenson and Kyle Pitts at their current ADPs, I would send a group text in my league. We just remove tight end from the league.
Come on. Wait, you're out on Pitts at his depressed ADP?
I'm out on Pitts because I don't think Desmond Ridder, I think, could maybe literally not hit the broadside of a barn.
But what about Taylor Heineke, starter?
Taylor Heineke, there was the class. I think I've used this joke in the show where they would actually bring the barn out on the field. And so like if you hit this, it's a touchdown, and then he could not. The only way he ever did was like if he was getting sacked. If he's getting sacked, then he would make some insane throw and it'd be a big gain. But no.
So you are like Kelsey Andrews or late round.
Yeah, that is accurate actually. I like Dallas Goedert actually. I take Dallas Goedert a lot in the mid rounds. Because I feel like he's just come tantalizingly close to that ceiling season like every year. The setup, it remains so perfect with the Eagles for Dallas Goedert. I think Goedert is going to be the guy who vaults into like the top 3 or 4 this year.
I could see that happening because look, the Eagles are actually going to have to play in the second half this year, most likely, rather than like last year where they yanked their starters with, at the end of the third quarter.
Yeah, every game.
So we're going to see more of the starters actually playing, more pass attempts, and that would be great, obviously for Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, but also for Goedert.
Do you want to talk about Mike Gesicki and Hunter Henry or no?
I mean, just the folks should know that Gesicki hurt his shoulder, may or may not be ready for week 1. We'll see. I like Hunter Henry straight up anyway. So because it doesn't really change anything.
My Hunter Henry take, this remains that one of the huge innovations Bill O'Brien is going to make in the Patriots offense is that the players will have roles. They will actually know what they're doing. And then Hunter Henry, better late than never, will be the established red zone weapon for the Patriots.
Right. And
he's going to score 7 to 8 touchdowns, which is pretty valuable at tight end.
It's all you need, all you're looking for. Honestly, in that part of the draft, you're just looking for some touchdown equity. And that's what you get with Henry, most likely.
Mike Gesicki as a Pat just screams like the biggest bust, like an even bigger bust than Mike Gesicki as a Dolphin last year.
Oh, yeah.
Bill Belichick is going to have absolutely no use for this guy.
No, he's going to be like, get out there and block.
Yeah, no, he's going to have zero use for Mike Gesicki. He's going to have he thought he had the buyer's remorse of Jonnu Smith. He's going to see Mike Gesicki. He's like, he's just covering his face. The CBS camera's like, I don't know, Bill's been covering his face the entire game. It's kind of weird. And he's just so ashamed that he has Mike Gesicki on his team.
The words "get him out of there" come to mind when I think of Belichick and Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, I don't know what the thought process was there, and he's going to go nuts now again as we say that. But it was the first weekend of the preseason. I don't know, things didn't really pop off that much. We got a huge game from Tank Dell. We got some nice runs from Zach. The way people were tweeting about Zach Charbonnet, like, oh man, he must have like 8 carries for 89 yards in the second half of this game. It was like 4 carries for like 10 yards, but he dump trucked the same third team defender twice. So people were going nuts over that.
Yes, they were.
Deuce Vaughn, who took advantage of the defense literally not being able to see him. That was pretty interesting. Do you have any other preseason? You're going to talk about Justin Fields a minute. Were there any other players getting steamed over the weekend? Did I miss anyone there?
I mean, I just want to say on Deuce Vaughn, the film watchers have been telling us. They've been telling us that nothing will stop Deuce Vaughn. Like you can try, but you can't, and you won't. And I'm starting
because you literally cannot see him.
I'm starting to buy. I don't, the analytics of not being able to see a very small running back. I don't know. I don't know those analytics. Okay. But I know that it worked the other night. And this guy was wildly productive in college. Right. And for me, that's what matters. That's why I like Dwayne McBride as the running back insurance in Minnesota. He was productive. Like, I want guys who have done it. And no one, almost no one did it as like Deuce Vaughn did at Kansas State. So from a 0 RB perspective, I'm starting to see Deuce Vaughn as a can't leave draft without him kind of guy.
Well, in the analytics on 5'7" Kansas State running backs having amazing NFL careers, especially in PPR, is 100%, as we know with Darren Sproles.
Well, with Sproles.
So it is analytics.
There you go.
Will be Tank Dell, where are you at on Tank Dell? Pat Crane, we talked about the concept of a drumbeat player with him. Hype starts early in the offseason and never stops. Like, he's a drumbeat player for sure, where you had the narrative. CJ Stroud said, we got to get Tank Dell. Tank Dell desperately wanted to go there. He explosively productive for the University of Houston. He blows up spring practices. He's blowing up training camp practices. He blows up his first preseason game. Are we excited? Is it to the point where Tank Dell is has to be drafted in every 12-team redraft league?
I think he should. I think he should be. But I mean, all of his production came against the second and third team defense, and the passes were not coming from CJ Stroud; they were coming from Davis Mills. Okay, so and Robert Woods wasn't active, and one other receiver whose name I can't think of for the Texans was not active.
That was troubling. That Bob Woods, they're protecting the veteran slot guy.
Yeah,
which makes sense. Robert Woods doesn't need these reps.
I do think that expectations are probably going to be ridiculous for Tank Dell entering week 1. Pump the brakes a little bit on that situation.
It's like it could be a classic letdown situation, but the hype is real. This isn't like fantasy manager created. This is there's hype here because he has actually been earning it, and he's been getting hyped by the coaching staff.
Yes. So. And that's worth noting, and that's why I think that he should be kind of a bench stash. I think especially he strikes me as a great pick if you went all in on running back in the first 2 or 3 rounds, and by the late rounds you're just scooping up guys who could emerge as decent, receiver options to plug in. Tank Dell strikes me as a perfect fit for that sort of roster build.
So before there was Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall and Rhamondre Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott, there was Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. We thought coming into the year, Kenneth Walker had shown he did not need any competition in the Seahawks backfield, and that he was the new bell cow, but then entered day 2 pick Zach Charbonnet, who we thought was going to be injured, ended up only missing 10 days or something, came back, was impressive in the Seahawks, not in the box score, but was impressive on the film. You've never watched a game, so you wouldn't know.
But I never will.
What do you make of the Seahawks backfield? And this is one I find, understandably so, very, very tough to predict.
The word vexing comes to mind. I am totally vexed over what to do with the Seahawks running backs. I mean, you can't trust Pete Carroll with these injuries, right? He says Charbonnet is out indefinitely. He was practicing 3 days later.
When he made it sound like Kenneth Walker's injury was minor, and he's not practicing still.
And he's not. I don't know. I guess, I mean, in a vacuum, I want Walker. If their ADPs are going to be very similar, I'd want Walker, but I understand taking Charbonnet as a guy who, could actually like inch his way into a lead back role, perhaps, if Walker continues to miss time. I'm trying to paint.
I don't know about that. I mean, I think still the line, like the 1A in the committee is Ken Walker. I don't really think that's up for debate. It's just a matter of the 1B role is enough touches for Zach Charbonnet to really basically cripple Kenneth Walker as an RB2. And I think I still trust Kenneth Walker as an RB2. Or this just seems like a lot of Seahawks sound and fury to me. And I still think Zach Charbonnet was more about them just being like they were caught so empty-handed when Kenneth Walker got hurt last year, and their running back depth was just so bad, not a situation they're used to. And it's kind of more about making sure that never happens again. He's going to get touches, but I just think it'll be still more in like the DJ Dallas, Travis Homer vein. I have a hard time believing it's really going to cripple Kenneth Walker's RB2 case, but people are very bullish on Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah, people really like him, and I think the Seahawks actually will be more balanced and or run heavy this year. I don't think that they want to do this thing where they let it fly with Geno Smith.
No, they really don't. I mean, that's been kind of, but it is weird they used a first round pick on a wide receiver. Curious.
I know.
I absolutely have agreed with that take, though, that they, even though it worked way better than anyone expected, that they don't want to use that formula again. That their plan was never, ever to make it rain with Geno Smith and 35 pass attempts per game.
I just can't imagine that's what they want to do. Like, let's just let Geno cook the whole season. So one of these Seattle running backs is going to really, really pay off, I think, for whoever drafts them. It's why I'm trying to get a little exposure to both. But I really don't have like a hard and fast take where I'm like, I'm taking this guy and not that guy.
My hard and fast take is that I am comfortable with Kenneth Walker as a top 18 running back still.
Okay.
And that I'm not really terribly concerned about Zach Charbonnet. And we'll see. He did dump truck that guy twice. You wanted to talk about the Bears offense.
Yeah.
Because they made some really big plays. They made really big plays last year. That was a little interesting. Like, people are like, it's preseason, like it's all yak, like kind of dumb. But like, it wasn't interesting to see the Bears were back on their bleep in the preseason.
That's right. But it was a different kind of bleep, Pat. Justin Fields, 129 yards and 2 touchdowns on a grand total of 3 pass attempts, which is a lot. And just so folks are aware, if you haven't seen the highlights, the air yards on those 3 attempts were as follows: -2, -2, and -3. Those were the air yards on the 3 attempts.
Bring the A-dot down.
Okay. Here's the thing, though. People, just that's fluky. This is bad news for Justin Fields. No. It's actually great news, and here's why. Last year, and this is according to Sharp Football Analysis, only 25% of Justin Fields' pass attempts were at or behind the line of scrimmage. That ranked 35th among 39 qualifying quarterbacks. Basically, they had him throwing downfield at a high clip, almost the highest in the league. He threw the 4th most passes that traveled 20 yards down the field, and the 5th most that traveled at least 10 yards down the field. So they were asking him to make low percentage, volatile kind of throws, the kind that he really excelled at Ohio State, but obviously the NFL is totally different. They didn't give him anything easy, nothing easy for Justin Fields last year. It all had to come. He had to grind for it. He had to work for every single pass, every single completion he had. That's not the case. That was not the case in this preseason game. If we get more of that, especially with DJ Moore in the mix, who's fantastic after the catch, as we saw the other day, I think that's fantastic news. We could get some easy passing points and production from Justin Fields, which we did not have at all in 2022.
Man, that is a really good observation. It would be one of the keys, that would need to be like one of the things that had to happen for like a Justin Fields like supernova season. Which
yes,
I guess we already had I guess I should say another Justin Fields supernova season, but we know that it just can't happen only on the ground again this year. That won't work. I mean, opposing defenses just aren't going to let that happen again. The adjustment will be made. I mean, the Bears understand that with the offseason personnel moves they made. Small sample size, but it was very, very encouraging to see.
I think it was. I look, Justin Fields haters, they're gonna hate. Okay, like nothing's gonna change their mind at this point. That and they'll say, oh, Justin Fields, even his screen passes were bad. Whatever. Like I don't want to talk about the accuracy of his screen passes. They were caught. They went for long touchdowns. I don't know really what you want out of the Bears offense, but really good offenses they throw at and around the line of scrimmage. The Bengals, the Bills, the Chiefs, these teams do that. If we can get some of that with the Bears, yes, please. My Justin Fields more stacks are going to enjoy that, I think.
Why were you and Zach Kruger texting me constantly Saturday, by the way, to draft Calvin Austin? What was that all about? Was that more Zach led or was that you?
That was more Zach led. Calvin Austin is a rookie for the Steelers, and He's making.
He might be a second-year guy. I can't remember actually.
Maybe he's turning heads. He's turning heads, folks. And Allen Robinson maybe cooked, so maybe he sneaks in there as fantasy relevant at some point.
He's a young guy. He is a second-year guy. But I think maybe he was hurt last year. I can't remember what the deal is with Calvin Austin, but he is a preseason rising player. You might not have anything. Did you see any Jordan Love? I know you've got a lot invested in this.
I did. It was not totally discouraging.
What did you think? You were encouraged, huh? Wow.
I mean, I wasn't discouraged, is what I'm saying. It's not like, oh God, like he's a disaster. Obviously, Sean Clifford will take the job by week 5.
I've seen the meme now on Twitter about Jordan Love is that no one has ever loved loft as much under their passes, and then I can't remember who it was. Maybe Charles McDonald. About that, he really gives the safety time to close, and he's really doing the safeties a solid with this loft.
It would be good if he put a little more zip on it. Like not every pass has to be fluttered, and I'm hoping that's not just how he throws the ball, because that'd be a problem.
The reminder that the last time Jordan Love played football for a full season, he had 20 touchdowns and 17 picks. Did you see anything with Sam Howell, by the way? I mean, we were on the road. We didn't get to see nearly as much of the preseason as we would
like. It's check down city with Sam Howell. Like that's all it's going to be. Like there will be nothing downfield. If Terry McLaurin is going to get there, and I don't hate Terry McLaurin's ADP, by the way.
So you just told me to take Terry McLaurin, and
I did. I said I don't hate it. And so, but it's going to be a lot of short stuff. There's going to have to be a lot of yak in order for a guy like McLaurin to get there. Sam Howell's not throwing, at least in this preseason game. I think his ADOT was like 6.
Yeah, it was low.
Real low.
It was low. Well, that was a nice spin through the news. It's really, really good to have actual news humming. We'll be back on Thursday for more news. We'll be looking ahead. We won't really be looking ahead to the preseason weekend, but maybe we'll talk about some players we want to see preseason week 2. We should hopefully see a few more starters that we did in preseason week 1, but right, hopefully have some more news, hopefully not injury news between now and Thursday. But we'll be back on Thursday. For Denny Carter, I'm Patrick Daugherty. Thank you for listening. Catch you later this week.